So we should be good. Hello and welcome everybody to this special else. And today I have someone live with me. Today on the show, my guest is Miss Sonia Punjabi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me here.
You're welcome. Now, second reason why this is special because we're hosting this in Illuminations Dubai, which is a one of its kind special holistic health and wellness center. Now, these guys do so many things, like they do courses, they have like a healing center, they train people. You can come in and do one of their I don't know, hundreds of things. And it was fantastic to see that in a place like Dubai and UAE, holistic health is picking eyes are on the forefront of it. And Sonia is the one who started all this. So welcome on the show, Sonia, and thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So let's rewind for a bit. Everyone's got a story,
Right.
and you know, accomplishing something as great as you have over here should have some story. So tell me your story.
Well, thank you so much for the compliment. So, my story goes back a long way. When I was actually 19 years old, a really close friend of mine had passed away in a car accident.
Mhm.
And from that experience, I went through a bit of an existential crisis, questioning everything in life. Like, who are we? Why are we here? What is the purpose of our lives? If everything can be taken away from us so easily, and my friend had anything that one would want in life, and suddenly within seconds, things can be taken away from you, and then you start to wonder, why do we worry? Why do we stress when we don't know when our last moment is going to be? And that kind of hit me. I was a bit like, I was around 19 years old. I was always really interested in holistic healing and spirituality and miracles and how the universe works, but I hadn't really had an experience to awaken me. And I think that experience led me through a bit of an existential crisis. I then wanted to like search for answers. A friend of mine had given me a book called yeah, Many Lives, Many Masters by Dr. Brian Weiss, because I was struggling so much to come to terms with my friend's death. And that got me really curious, because in the book I was introduced to concepts like what happens to us when we die, what happens to the soul, about reincarnation, about past lives, about the mind and the power of the mind. And so that led me on a journey of spirituality where I started to like read a lot. I started to research, and when I went back yeah, to India on a holiday, because that's where we're from, and I thought that India is a land of spirituality and mysticism, I'm sure there's someone who can help me learn more and help me find answers to all the questions that I had after reading that book. And so I did a lot of research. I went online and I found a clinical hypnotherapist. His name is Yuvraj Kapadia. And I called him up and I met him for half an hour, and everything that he told me completely blew my mind. It's like when you're ready for what you need to be ready for, like the universe provides you with the right teachers. So I think when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And for me, that happened at a very young age. And that got me on a journey of healing. It was everything from understanding how our mind works, how we create everything in our lives, what is energy, that we are so much more beyond than what we can hear, see, taste, touch, and smell, and that there's an entire world that's happening like around us, and how we are actually creating our lives with our thoughts, our words, our actions, our reactions, our perceptions. And if we have created anything in our life, we have the power to uncreate it and create the life that we want. So I was like, all right, now that I have all this information, and I was so inspired by just that half an hour conversation, I went on a journey of firstly healing myself. I went back and really understood all the perceptions, the beliefs, the experiences that shaped me to be where I was at in my life. And obviously, we're all struggling with certain issues. And I wanted to understand why I really manifested those issues in my life, because now I understood that I created it. And when you understand, like, it's not about why is this happening to me, it's more about what is it that it's trying to teach me. You then end up taking complete responsibility for your life. And for me, I was introduced to the power of the subconscious mind, how we change our lives through manifesting, through learning about like energy healing, working with our inner children, learning about how we can silence the mental chatter and the self-talk, which is so many of the times it's negative. I learned about how you can just calm your mind down, how you can access higher energies, how you can apply higher wisdom in your everyday life. And I did every single healing course, I did every single workshop, I went through my own therapy journey. And then I realized that why doesn't everyone not know about this? And when I spoke to my friends and family, I think initially they thought I was a bit crazy, because remember, this was way back in 2006, and things like mindfulness, meditation, healing, spirituality weren't as common as they are today, as we earlier discussed. And so when I moved back to the UAE in 2006, I really, I made a promise to myself on the flight back, and I said, I've gained so much wisdom, so much value,
Mhm.
that I want to continue this. I don't want to forget about it, because we're creatures of habit. We get really inspired, and then life happens. It's your everyday life routine, and then you tend to forget about things. You tend to just go back into your rut and just not really think about things. So I made a promise to myself, a commitment, that I would continue my healing journey and make sure that this is something I would really try to apply for the rest of my life. But when I came back to Dubai, I tried to research things like meditation and holistic healing and wellness, because I kind of wanted to really interact with like-minded people who were reading the same books, who I could share and learn from. And I literally found nothing. And I was like, wait a second, here in Dubai, we have everything. Consumerism has reached its peak. We have everything in life, but yet people are not really redirecting and looking inwards to questioning who they are, why are they here, like what is the purpose of their lives, and is what I have around me really making me happy? And I think it doesn't call for a complete change, but just more of an introspection, a reflection, to maybe look into yourself and realize that if something in your life is not working, it usually is the answer lies within yourself. So many of the times when life doesn't work out for us, we're looking to seek from the outside. So either we think, okay, if we have more money, or if we look better, or if we have a better job, or if we had a relationship that made us happier, there's always more to want on the outside world. But rarely were people actually looking inside, realizing that no matter how much we have on the outside, one thing we know is that what we have on the outside can only give us temporary inspiration and happiness. Right? At the end of the day, we have to start looking within, and we can see this prevalent all throughout. It could be with celebrities, and we see that no matter how much they have, even they're not that happy.
Mhm.
So clearly, that's not the answer. And so I came back here to Dubai in 2006, and I decided to bring all the teachers that I learned from here to the UAE, because I was talking about it with friends and family. And I think inherently, each one of us is wants to live a happier, healthier, and more purposeful life. And I just basically tapped into that need that people always have. And when I spoke about it with friends and family, they were so intrigued. And when I brought down my healers and teachers from India, all my courses were full. I organized private healing therapy sessions, and this was completely on a voluntary basis. It's because I gained so much value from them. I also wanted to help them, and I wanted to spread their work. And so that's how I came into this whole wellness space here in Dubai. And organically we grew, because every time they'd come down, from India every couple of months, I mean, like the awareness grew. We'd have more and more people come in. Like in one room, I'd have like 45 people, and this is prior to social media as well.
Yeah.
This was completely just word of mouth, right? And so that's how I basically fell into this space. And then my teachers encouraged me. They're like, "You're so amazing at organizing events, and you're so inspiring, and you're so passionate about it. Why don't you make this a career?" And then my parents were like, "How can you make this a career?" Because
Mhm.
I had an education from London, and I was, and it was not exactly into wellness. And so my parents were like, "We spent so much money on your education, and now you're going to learn and work with quacks." My
Yeah.
father said, he said, "What are you trying to do?" So my parents weren't as supportive initially, but I think later on, once they realized how happy it made me, I think they were just like, kind of witnessing from the background, like all that was happening.
Mhm.
And so I decided that, okay, one day I'm going to create like a holistic events organization, where I was going to organize healing and spiritual events. And I was one day in the shower, and I said, okay, I have to call this initiative something. And it just came to me. I said, I'm going to call it Illuminations. And Illuminations was born in the shower. And I said, and then it's like when you're meant to, when you have a path or you have a calling, like everything in life works towards helping you to achieve that.
Mhm.
Because I was doing it completely from my heart. My goal was to spread awareness on the power of the self, the mind, and the consciousness, because the awareness was not very prevalent over here. And remember, this was the GCC, the Middle East. People had no awareness on meditation. Like a lot of people, like initially thought it was against their religion. So I had to face a lot of that initially. But I think at the end of the day, people realized that this kind of work was non-judgmental, non-biased. It was completely neutral, and in fact, it brought you closer to your own faith. Because in so many ways, like you are your own God, like you have that God residing within yourself, or you have that universe residing within you. And when you tap into that, I think a whole new world opens up. And I think a lot of people realize that they were a lot more empathetic, they were a lot more compassionate, they were a lot more aware. And that is exactly what all our religions kind of teach us in not so many ways. So for me, it was a lot of alignment that was happening. And then I'd have random healers and speakers and facilitators contact me from all around the world and say, I heard you organize these events. And I had no idea where they got my numbers. It was really like word of mouth that spread. We didn't have the Instagram and your reels and your social media as you had today. So it was literally just word of mouth, and people contacted me. I'd organize events for them. I'd experience their work. So I was learning so much as an individual myself, because I get to experience all these healing therapies, new modalities. But the whole goal was to help you transform the way you think, the way you feel, the way you behave, the way you act. So it could be through energy healing, it could be through hypnosis, it could be through mind sciences, it could be through spiritual healing. All of these modalities were like introduced to me very organically, and I got to learn so much from them. And then we grew to one space, and then I opened this JLT center in 2011, and I opened another branch in India. I opened a third branch in Murdiff. I opened one in Abu Dhabi recently. So the awareness grew, and from just organizing events, we created a space where we do one-on-one therapy sessions. We offer healing and meditations. We have a training academy, because what happened in 2012, my teachers were like, we can't keep coming here to Dubai. You have to empower yourself, and you should train to become a hypnotherapist and a coach and a wellness practitioner. And so I went to India. I learned to become a hypnotherapist, coach, and wellness practitioner. And I had my own private practice where I would see almost 9 clients a day. And from there, what we decided, like, if we are to spread more awareness, we have to create more healers and practitioners who would then go on to heal other people. And that's how the Illuminations Training Academy was born. So the Training Academy, the whole sole purpose of the Training Academy is to create and empower change makers. Now, change makers can be like anything from mind science practitioners to people who are into energy medicine, to people who are into spiritual healing, just a way to help people transform, like their lives. And so the Training Academy was born, and from there on, in 2014, we said, why not, why not organize wellness retreats? I have a passion for traveling. So I decided to mix my passion with my hobby and my work. So I decided that I'm going to organize wellness retreats all over the world, because I was working so hard back then. I needed like an
A break.
excuse to travel
Yeah.
as well. And I said, in order to travel, why not make it work and fun at the same time? Because that's what kind of life was all about.
Yeah.
So I decided to organize wellness retreats in 2014. So since 2014 to 2019, we were organizing wellness retreats all over the world, from Tanzania to Burma to Japan. So it was an amazing experience where we got to explore the world, meet with, interact with so many like-minded individuals, and it really expanded my own growth. So I always also wanted to focus on what makes me happy and what I really truly think would help other people as well. And then eventually, we had so many clients, and a lot of our clients were like working professionals, and they're like, I'm so stressed. I wish I could have this in my workspace. My colleagues need this. My boss needs to know about this. And that's how our corporate wellness space was born. So we organized a lot of corporate wellness events, which not many people know about, but we organized about 3 to 4 wellness events with corporations every single month. So that's what we launched in 2012 as well. So now Illuminations, from being just a wellness space, we ended up becoming a wellness platform to create a movement of change, a movement of personal evolution as a key to lasting happiness. And then obviously when COVID hit, that's been a huge accelerator, because, a lot of people realize that wellness is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity for everybody, and that people don't have control over what's going on around them, but they certainly have control over what's happening within them. And all we have to be responsible is for our mental health, our emotional well-being, our self-care, just to maintain ourselves, to be at our optimum, to navigate ourselves through this chaos that is so unknown. And one of the things that people have so much fear about and so much anxiety about is because they feel they can't control things. And here was a pandemic that was so unknown to every one of us. And because it was so unknown, it was so fearful because we didn't know when we're going to get sick. We didn't know the impact it was going to have on our health, on our lives, on our families, on our jobs, on so much that we held so much value towards, right? Like a lot of people, they define themselves by their job, they define themselves by their family, they define themselves by so many things outside of them. And suddenly there's a mass event that takes place and cuts you off from everything that you held so dearly to yourself. So I think all the suppression of emotions that we had came to the surface. And that's why today wellness is probably created a change movement, because people are now realizing that everything that they tried to suppress through all the other distractions of life. It could be traveling, it could be shopping, it could be partying, it could be whatever it is, and that's no longer existing. And I think that's been a blessing in disguise in many ways, although it's been very hard, I think, for a lot of people. I think in a lot of ways, it's really tried to accelerate that change and lead people towards living in their light. And that's pretty much my journey in a nutshell. And yeah, it's been an eventful last 12 years, and there's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot of work to do. With COVID, we're launching an online platform. We're trying to expand into other areas of wellness as a lifestyle. One of the things I'm really passionate about also is going back into ancient wisdom, because all of the things that we're learning today, whether it's like energy, whether it's sound, whether it's fasting, whether it's lifestyle, all of this was previously rooted way back in ancient times, and it's been lost throughout the years. So in so many ancient civilizations and cultures, there's so much wisdom that can be extracted to help us navigate ourselves through how to live a more happier, healthier, and more purposeful life in the modern world, how to help us manage our stress, how to live at our optimum. And I think that one of the most important things is that healing is an intelligent choice for those people who wish to make their inner peace a priority, because all you have control over is what's happening inside of you. So like a lot of people have this misconception that I only need to come to heal if something is wrong in my life. That's actually not true. A lot of people are facing an imbalance or a struggle, and I think it's just about finding that inner peace, and by knowing yourself, because the more you know, the more you can do better for yourself and for the rest of the world. And so I think that's our main goal at the end of the day.
Wow, you've come a very long way from where you started, going through all of these experiences. While you're navigating this story for us, I'm already feeling the chills, thinking like how we've attended so many things. Now, you have a quote on the wall that says, if for those of you who can't see it, it's on the wall over here, and I'll read it to you. Life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for the evolution of your consciousness. Now, do you think all of us are destined to have a certain role in life? Now, when you were looking back at your story, do you think that you were destined, in a way or the other, to be this teacher, healer, bringing this community of people together, healing so many people and teaching so many people? And you've studied a lot of ancient things. So,
Right.
have you ever looked at any information that has pointed you into that same direction, that you are living your life's purpose, or something like this was predestined for you?
Right. I think, we're all born with the soul blueprint. It's in our DNA of who we are, what we're going to become, and what we're meant to contribute on this earth in this lifetime.
Mhm.
But what happens, I think, from the day we're born, that awareness is very, very clear. We know exactly who we are. That's why as a child, we're so eager to move around, put everything in our mouth. We're eager to get on the experience of life, right? But what happens after the age of 2? Based on your environment, based on your upbringing, based on your parental beliefs, based on everything that's around you, okay? You tend to get absorbed by everything around you. And a lot of people were not born in very supportive environments, or one way or the other, they perceive their environment to be harmful, okay? So, what ends up happening between the ages of 2 to 8, you acquire all your beliefs about life, about love, about work, about family, okay? And these beliefs get ingrained in your subconscious mind, all right? So now what happens is, if those beliefs are not in alignment with your soul purpose, by the time you're at the age of 8, you have so much noise around you, okay, which has been like influenced by everything around you. And then we tend to forget that voice. We tend to forget that blueprint, right? And then we move on through life with all our fears, all our limitations, all our worries, till one day an incident, it could be, for me it happened at the age of 19, it could be a divorce, it could be a death, it could be something that triggers us, to wake us up from the slumber that we were all experiencing. And that slumber will be very hard for you. It'll slap you in the face and it'll make you question everything in your life. And when you get to that dark point where you realize, why is this happening to me? It's like in the darkest of the night, there's a light that kind of comes through. And that is that point where you have those opportunities. And there are windows of opportunities where you can start to reflect and question, why do I think the way I do? Is this the way I really think, or is this because of an experience in your past? If you've been through abuse, if you've been through neglect, if you've been through trauma, right? You're holding on to all of that trauma. So you've lost that voice, you've lost that blueprint, you've lost the awareness of that blueprint. So I think the whole journey of healing is to kind of silence out that noise, to heal and realize that you are not all of those experiences. Who were you before those experiences from the day you were born? And that's precisely the point of healing. That's why people come into healing, to clear the noise, to silence the mind, and then the intuition starts to speak. Your intuition or that gut feeling is connected, to your higher self, your blueprint. And once you start connecting to that intuition, things start to kind of come into place, because you're no longer really operating from that void or that fear, right? Because you've kind of realized that this experience happened because it was meant to happen, but it's not who you are. Your experiences are not who you are. It's like when you go to the airport and you show the immigration officer your passport. Are you your passport? You're not your passport. Your passport is simply a collection of experiences based on everything that you've been through and where you've traveled through. But it's not really you. In the same manner, if we start to create the wisdom to realize that whatever happened to us at 3 years old, or in grade one, when everybody laughed at us, when our parents, slapped us, or when, whatever happened in the past, we tend to hold on to those experiences, right? And then we tend to say, okay, I'm not good enough. I'm not this enough. I'm like this. And these experiences is then what ends up manifesting the dark periods in your life. But there is an intuition and an inner calling that's meant to wake you up. And unfortunately, human beings, they don't wake up when you tap them. They don't wake up when you hit them. They don't wake up when you slap them. And then suddenly when you cut them, they're like, ouch, this hurts.
Yeah.
And then they start to question, everything in their life. And that question is very good. And so when it says life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for your soul, it's true, because only sometimes, unfortunately, in pain becomes a vehicle to growth. And sometimes pain becomes that catalyst where we question life, because nobody questions life when they wake up every morning. Why am I so good looking today? Why am I so successful today? We get caught up in the distraction of the external, right? Because in our childhood, we were very taught to be happy. We were taught that we have to get a job because we have to make money, because we have to be successful, because the world will love us more, right? So when you don't love yourself enough, or when you've not been taught to love yourself, what ends up happening is you start to look from the outside to get love. So your way to look good, to be fit sometimes, to look better, to run after things outside of you, you do it so unconsciously because you've been taught that that's what's going to make you happy.
Just validation.
Yeah,
is
exactly. You
important.
need validation from the outside world, because we are in a world which teaches us the more you have from the outside, the more valuable you are. And we all want to feel valuable. We all want to feel like we have, like life loves us so much. But the purpose of that, we all understand, is that we haven't learned to really figure out what's happening within ourselves. And pain helps us realize that even when we have all those things, we're still not happy. So now where would we look? And that's when we start to look within and realize the answer is not outside. Of course, those things are amazing. We all want to live, the best version of ourselves. But it needs to be coming from a place of love and passion, not from a place of fear and void. So whenever you're trying to have a check-in with yourself, or, if you're aspiring for a new career, or if you're like, or if you have a desire for something, you got to really check in. Is this coming from a space of fear, or is this coming from a place of love? Because if it's coming from a place of love, regardless of what happens, I'll still be okay. If it's coming from a place of fear, if this doesn't happen, I will be nothing. So you have to check in with yourself constantly. And I think that's when healing practices like meditation, self reflection, reading a book, taking care of yourself, spending time with nature, because it brings you closer to your soul.
Mhm.
So when you take care of things that bring you closer to your soul, this intuition speaks louder, and this intuition is connected with your blueprint in life.
Mhm.
Okay, and this is what we basically are. I mean, here's the end goal, right?
Yeah.
So we believe that everything in life begins with a thought, right? Every thought generates an emotion that you feel. Every emotion will influence your energy levels and manifest in the body and in your life, right?
Mhm.
So it's about really understanding the thought processes that drive your experiences in life. And what are your thoughts influenced by? Your thoughts are influenced by
Social
your
media.
beliefs. Yeah. Today, your thoughts are influenced by your beliefs, which are coming from your experiences,
Yeah.
right? So when you can start to have a relook at your experiences that have shaped the way you are, you can change your beliefs, you can change your thoughts, and that's how pretty
Mhm.
much you can change your life. And whatever we offer at Illuminations helps to work on changing your thoughts, changing your emotions, changing your energy, and changing what's happening in your body.
I asked this question because about a few months ago, I was in Ukraine and I went to this very ancient Russian healing practice, and they did a scan of my aura.
Okay.
And in that, those guys did not speak English, and they gave me a 25-page report that I was meant to go through, but all in Russian.
Yeah.
So I had one of my Russian friends translate it for me about a month ago, and most of the information that was reflected on those 25 pages were 9 times out of 10 it was about me, right?
Okay.
And these guys didn't know me. They just did a scan. They asked me a few questions, and then I get a computerized report. In that report, it says that my whole purpose of coming into this world, and I'm just sharing my story because I don't know
Yeah, of
anyone
course.
else's,
Yeah.
is because I'm here to teach other people. Everything that life will show me, it will have to be reflected onto other people's consciousness, awareness, their mind, and I will be a platform for that. And when I understood that, I already had a podcast, I was already writing articles, I was already recording videos, explaining things. And I was like, this makes sense. And then recently I did a tarot card reading, and this person was I got her reference through someone, and they said she's really good. And the first thing she looks at me, she opens my card without even me asking her something. Is like, "Are you a teacher?" And I'm like, "No." It's like, "Why aren't you one then?" Because right now I can look at your cards, not even knowing who you are, and I know that you're destined for teaching. This is why I asked you that question. So, if people are destined for a few things in their life, is there any way we can kind of find that out much earlier rather than, just because tapping into intuition could take some time. Getting to that realization point can get some time or take some time. But with things like this, have you found out other practices or some kind of a reading or like some kind of a thing which can biohack or kind of like accelerate that process so people might not have to go through that pain?
It's something so simple and something so profound and something not as easy to do as we think it is, but the answer lies in meditation. There is an author by the name of Michael A. Singer, and he writes this book called The Untethered Soul. I recommend that everybody who's watching this must
Take notes,
read
everyone.
that book. The Untethered Soul is a book that came in my life just 3 to 4 years ago, but it has transformed my approach to meditation and working on your intuition. You can do all the healing therapies in the world, okay? And it's very valuable, of course. But after only so much you can dig up into me, because you today are a collection of experiences, not in just this lifetime, but in many previous lifetimes, right? And so if you go back and spend your entire life redigging into the past, of course there are main key points that you must reflect on, but if you keep doing that constantly, you're simply regressing back into a story or a drama. What's more important is how you feel today and how you feel in here, in the here and the now. So with Michael Singer, what he talks about is nobody knows yourself more than you. No tarot reader in the world, no spiritual guru in the world has, but people don't realize that, because I think so many of the times we think that this author is going to change our life. They might be catalysts, of course.
Yeah.
People might guide you or nudge you in the direction that you need to go. But one of the most profound practices is meditation. And why do I say meditation? Is because you have a mental chatter that's playing in the background, a voice, and what he calls it in the book is a roommate in your head that doesn't shut up. It just tells you, it comments on everything, it judges everything, right? It perceives everything. It's a mental chatter that goes on in the background the moment you look at a person, the moment you walk in the room. And that mental chatter is coming from your conditioning on your childhood of what you've been taught. So the more you think and more you perceive a person in a certain way, the more you tend to attract exactly the same experience because you are looking at your life from that window. So what Michael Singer says is that you can never silence that chatter. All you need to do is start to find a way to realize that you are not that voice, because that voice is coming from your childhood. The voice is coming from that fear. The voice is coming from judgment. The voice is coming from limitation. But once you start to focus and remain silent in your inner space, what you can do is you drown out the sounds of that voice. And when you drown out the sounds in your like of that voice through practice, there's a stillness that comes in. When you have that space of being still, and I've experienced this, there's another voice that appears, and that voice is the voice of your intuition, and you directly know the difference between the two. And that voice, the moment you connect to that energy, automatically you start to have that clarity about where you need to go. So most people think it's about going to somebody else. Yes, there's a lot of value in, like in the fact that we also agree that everything in the universe is energy, right? For example, you have your subconscious mind, okay? Everything in the subconscious, there's no past, present, and future. Okay, it's only in this reality that time is moving linear. So you see yesterday as the past, today as the present, tomorrow as the future. But in the subconscious mind and within your energy space, everything is happening in the here and the now, which is why when you walk into a room and you pick up that tarot card, the tarot card reader can predict the energy of a parallel possibility, because for the soul, everything is happening in the here and the now. So there's a potential parallel possibility that you can become a healer and a teacher if you take certain steps towards that. But the steps that you need to take can only be possible when you silence that voice. Now, when that voice is too hard to silence, that's when you go into healing and therapy. Because sometimes when you face a lot of trauma or a lot of abuse or a lot of negative emotions in your childhood, no matter how hard you try, the noise just keeps getting louder and louder. But sometimes you can use meditation as a daily practice to be able to silence that voice, and that's the best way to guide you to where you need to go. It'll just happen. Like for me, it happened very organically because I had done so much of my own work that I ended up manifesting the right teachers. I ended up having the idea. It's like they say, you can work so hard on a project, and the moment you leave that project and go and just relax and listen to music, you'll get that inspiration. Where does that inspiration come from? That inspiration is being channeled from your higher self, or from from that intuition. You'll always see that whether it's like Albert Einstein, all of the genius thoughts and ideas that he came up with was not when he was actually doing the work, when he was doing something completely else. Because you're channeling that inspiration, and then suddenly you'll have the idea to make a call to a friend. You'll walk into a mall and you'll meet a friend, because that is the energy that's going to create that power. Like we say that everything is energy, E equals MC squared, right? If I break you down, what will I get? I will get protons, neutrons, and electrons vibrating at a certain frequency to make you look like you, right? So all of us are like energies which are operating at a certain frequency, a certain vibration. Many of the times that vibration is based on fear, right? Once we start to raise our vibration, the energy of that vibration within your space will manifest a new reality, right? So for example, as we start to work on ourselves through self-care practices, through spending time with nature, through meditation, we're raising that vibration into a vibration of love. And that vibration opens a door to a new reality or a new destiny. And that's kind of pretty much how it happens. So it is a journey for sure, but it can be a choice that you can make today. Or it can be a choice which, because a lot of people, it's exactly, if you want to be the best swimmer in the world, or if you want to be the best musician, you got to practice. Right? But for spirituality, people think that it's just supposed to happen. And that's why people now are so focused
So
on
the 10,000 hour rule applies in
100%,
spirituality as well.
like 100%. You have to find some time in your day, and everyone's practice is different. Some people can, so they find like a value through journaling. Some people find it through meditation. Other people find it walking on the beach in the morning,
Yeah.
like jogging by the sun, spending a few minutes with the child. Anything that basically helps you to kind of calm down, relax, and not be so tight and stressed within yourself,
And
automatically you
not be
start
so
to
fearful.
flow. Exactly. So then, and that's how you change your vibration, and that's how you change your frequency. That's how you change your destiny.
It's interesting that we always come around, we're talking about so many things, and one of the things that keeps coming in is fear. And like you said, you can experience life through different lenses. And you're correct, when you're from 0 to 2, most of the things that are going on with your neighbors, your aunts, the way your parents are talking to each other, whether parents are talking to you, what you're seeing
Exactly.
on TV, all gets collected in this pool of mind, which is the subconscious mind, right?
Correct.
And when you analyze the subconscious mind, it is basically you're mostly using your active conscious mind most of the times, but 90% of the neural activity is actually going on in your subconscious mind.
Exactly.
And it's also interesting when you bring up fear, because our bodies are designed, at least our senses, five sense, and there are so many senses that we haven't discovered yet,
Mhm.
but at least our five senses have been designed to give us 11 million bits of information per second.
Correct.
Now, this 11 million bits is way too much for the brain to handle.
Correct.
So it also goes through an order of elimination. So it goes in the order of importance. And the way we've evolved is that there are few things that you have to do as an organism to survive, as a
Correct.
species to survive.
Correct.
You've got to run away from things that are bigger and more scarier. That's
Fight or
fear.
flight.
Yeah, fight or flight.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to eat everything that you could, otherwise you're going to starve and you're going to die. Then you need to reproduce, because you have to send that biological signals that you're still kind of
Like your many of you. So
useful.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And the last one is you have to be in a community, because people who are lonely, they die faster than people who are living in communities.
Correct.
And one of the things, capitalizing on that fear part or fight or flight, is if you had to survive, you needed to get, and our brain, if you dissect it, has got different different parts of the brain which are responsible for different things.
Correct.
And when you dissect the brain, the first information that the brain needs to receive is if a situation is fearful or not. And that is in a certain part of our brain called the amygdala, which is also responsible for the emotions of our brain.
Correct.
Fear is an emotion. So when you have 11 million bits coming in, and then your brain can only take in 11 bits or 9 bits, I'm sorry, 9 bits. They've done some studies in the University of Berkeley that shows 9 bits of information gets processed. It gets through the amygdala first. So what I'm trying to say is, for every thought, or for every you walk into a room, your biology is designed to look at something that is going to hurt you first,
Correct.
because that's the way it gets transferred.
Yes.
And then you go from the brainstem, from the higher centers of your brain, like the medial prefrontal cortex or the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for more of your logical thinking. And once you bypass this filter, and some studies have also shown that for every information that you see, 9 times out of 10, you're going to see like something negative in it,
Right.
and only one time, like 9 out of 10, so once, you will see something positive. And I think that is also very important for people to realize, because
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
look at something and you're fearful, or you're like, you get scared, or some other emotions like anger comes in, we have to realize that nature designed us to be this way just to
Exactly.
survive.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's interesting that you say that meditation could be one of the ways to bypass this
Bypass it.
filtration. Now, for someone who's listening to this show and they want to check, they haven't probably meditated yet. A lot of people are scared of meditation because they cannot sit still with themselves. So,
Right.
what's the minimum effective dose of meditation?
It can be even a few minutes in the day, right? So,
Okay.
for example, a lot of people would have heard about the mindfulness practice, right? So, the
Mhm.
mindfulness practice is simply focusing on your breath, because your breath is directly connected with your mind, and
Mhm.
your brain. So, what happens is to lower because that constant mental chatter, or the information that you talk about, that's constantly like playing in the background and creating an overdose of information. And then what we teach in hypnotherapy is that the conscious mind gives control to this subconscious when the information gets too much. And then you're operating out of a fight flight mechanism.
Mm.
So what we train our students to basically focus on is even a few minutes on focusing on your breath, okay? And then paying attention to where your mind is wandering. So most people think that they're supposed to stop their thoughts, but that's actually not true. What you're supposed to
You
do is
witness them.
you're supposed to witness them and write them down, right? Because everywhere your mind is not making you in the present is where your mind is telling you where you need to pay attention to. So let's just say I'm silent over here, I'm trying to focus on my breath, and I breathe in and out, breathe in 5 breaths, breathe out 5 breaths, and then I start to repeat this practice for a few moments, and then suddenly my mind is wandering to my relationship.
Hmm.
Okay, so what I can do is then again be like, okay, pay attention, and then repeat to myself present. It's like a little child that runs away,
Yeah.
because the mind will give you 1,000 reasons not to be in the present.
Hmm.
But as you start to really witness to where the thoughts are taking you, and when you come out of the practice after a few minutes, write it down, right? Because then you're realizing the mind is providing you with feedback, with information
Hmm.
about the areas of your life that are not present. And when you take off the pressure of remaining silent in the present moment, suddenly you can do this. You can start to increase your practice. So from 1 minute, you can go to 3 minutes. From 3 minutes, you can go to 5 minutes. It's like running on the treadmill and you
Hmm.
want to beat your challenge. In the same way, you can complete this practice.
Hmm.
And another way to help you like ground is because the mind has to always think of what's going to happen, because it keeps you in control, right? Because you
Yeah.
want to be in control. And one of the deepest fears we all have is losing control. So when you're in a stressful environment and you're focusing on a million things, what you can do is practice a grounding exercise, because grounding exercise helps you to focus and channelize your thoughts in the present moment. So you look around and you can say 5 things I can see, okay?
Hmm.
4 things I can touch,
Okay.
okay? 3 things I can smell, 2 things I can hear, 1 thing I can taste. And that automatically, if you continue this practice, it's a very simple and quick grounding exercise that kind of can help you bring you back in the present moment. But like I said, why is healing and therapy also so important? Because regardless of sometimes, no software has the ability to detect its own virus, and the
Hmm.
human mind is like that as well.
Hmm.
Sometimes if the mind has created the virus, to overcome the virus itself can be a little bit challenging.
Yeah.
And that's why when a person has gone through extreme pain, trauma, we recommend a mental health like intervention. It could be psychology, psychotherapy combined with hypnosis. We provide like an integrated approach where
Yeah.
we combine like holistic health practices, which is energy medicines, spiritual healing, transpersonal psychology, because we feel that your thoughts and your emotions and your energies are in many different areas.
Yeah.
And we want to work on all those areas in order to bring you back into integrity, back into balance, right? So I think that is extremely important for people who are really wanting to meditate but can't seem to find the time to meditate. They should definitely seek help, because, like everything in life, you need a coach,
Yeah. What
right?
about applications? Because these days you have a lot of these applications that can lure you into either playing binaural beats in your
Sure.
ears.
Like Calm and Headspace and
Yeah.
all. Of course, they're extremely like valuable. I personally am a bit old school, so I find the actual experience of meeting with a teacher or actually experiencing, because spirituality, I feel, is something that needs to be experienced initially, at least,
Hmm.
in person. This is my personal experience, but
Okay.
I could be coached totally. I know a lot of people, they think differently, but I think having that guide,
Yeah.
having that teacher, having that group, having that
Well,
experience,
you also
it's just
build
so
up on
intimate,
other people's energies, right?
100%.
And like you mentioned earlier that sometimes you're just you're looking at a problem and you're trying to solve it, and then it doesn't happen at the moment, and then you're taking a shower and it comes in.
Exactly.
And this also happens because
It's like
once
that aha
you're
moment. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and there is a way you can hack into it. It's called the MacGyver method. And basically what you do is you write down, for anyone who's listening, if you want to access your subconscious mind to give you an answer to a problem that you've been kind of like confused with, here's what you do. Take out a pen and paper, write down your problem. Okay, it could simply be like, hey, what am I going to name my new business, or when am I going to talk to the lawyer, or something like this, things that you need to focus on. And then write about it for about 2 to 3 minutes. Just write whatever flows in, and then forget. Close the book. Forget about it for about 4 to 6 hours. Go do something nice and easy, something stimulating, but not something like a CrossFit workout, because that's going to just tire your brain out. what happens is your mind
And
will
you actually have to write, not
you have
type
to,
it.
no, not
Exactly, because writing
I
is a
yeah,
subconscious mind too.
I prefer writing, and in the research they've said like you've got to write it,
Yeah.
and then forget about it. Go take a shower, do whatever, do something, garden, like take your dog for a walk, do something lightly stimulating, and then after 4 or 6 hours, get back to the book, and you don't have to start writing something about the problem, but just start writing something.
Right, right.
Start writing something from 5 to 10 minutes, and automatically your brain will give you at least some suggestions on what has to happen, or else you'll have that aha moment in the shower, or you'll have
Correct.
something like this.
Correct.
And it's also interesting, like you spoke about meditation and being silent. What I have seen in peak performance is that there's a minimum effective dose of 20 minutes, because I've been meditating for a few years, and I have meditated with a not a spiritual master, but someone who knew much more about meditation than me. I have meditated with different kind of sounds. I have meditated with putting electrodes on my head and luring myself into alpha brainwave frequency, and just using these apps. So what I have found, that for the first 10 minutes, until and unless you have been meditating maybe for 40 years and you have that 40 years of zen thing, it's very hard for people to lower their executive beta brainwave activity into more of alpha or even theta. Like experienced masters will do it on command. They'll
Right,
tell you
right, right.
in a minute they'll be into alpha. But I also monitor. I have an 8 EEG scanning device, and I also monitor my brainwave activity and how long it takes me to change my
Right,
focus
right.
and attention. And it appears to be that for the first 10 minutes, if you're average, your brain is going to do a lot of chatter work,
Right.
right? Even if you've experienced meditation for a few years, but the magic starts happening after 10 minutes, when your brain already has got into this pattern recognition system of, okay, you know what, now is going to do all this chattering, and then slowly that chatter goes down. And that is when, between minutes 10 to minute 20, is when you will find your brain really relaxing, going into that alpha brainwave activity. If you can do it more, it doesn't benefit much, but for peak performance, for athletes, every time I recommend someone, I tell them try to do at least 20
Right.
minutes, because if
Right.
you do like five, it's good to do 5 minutes for mindfulness, and for breath work it's brilliant, because
Right,
you
right.
can obviously put yourself into
Yeah,
the
the breath work I
parasympathetic.
think is so useful because it clears out the mind before you.
Yes.
It's like a pre-meditation practice.
What's your favorite type of breath work?
I like the alternate nostril breathing or
Okay.
just regular breathing. I also like breathing through the stomach. I find it's kind of what we do in rebirthing breath work.
Do you
Where
mean like breathing into the diaphragm?
yeah, it's
Okay.
it's basically the childlike breathing where you breathe through the stomach and out. Yeah, so you breathe, and so the more you inhale, the stomach moves out and back in.
Is there a ratio between the inhales and the exhales
No,
that we
no,
have to focus on?
no. It's just what you can do is you can increase the speed. So like you can start slow, and the thing is, it's more effective when you close your eyes because it increases the oxygen in the body.
Mhm.
And if you keep continuing the practice, it automatically makes your hands numb, your legs tingle, and it can put you in a very scary state because you're increasing the oxygen in your body and in your brain. And that can have a very, it's like you have a high suddenly.
Mhm.
But if you keep your eyes closed, like the energy remains in the body. The moment you open your eyes or your mouth, the energy automatically moves outside. And if you do this for 10 minutes, you'll find that it reaches the brain and suddenly your brain is completely cleared. But
Okay.
I would recommend initially if you
Can
start.
you teach us how do we do it? Let me see. So you put your
Yeah, so you put basically your hand.
if you're driving, don't try this, but
Yeah,
if
I
you're
would-
at home, you
yeah,
can.
I mean, I would recommend initially if it's your first time that you do it with like you're the guidance of a practitioner. But otherwise,
Just want to get the idea. Yeah.
sure. Okay, so you close your eyes
Yeah.
and you take a deep breath. Okay, and as you inhale, you move out through your stomach moves out. So you do this. So you're inhaling, and with every inhale, your stomach moves out. Just like how a baby breathes, they breathe through their stomach.
So I see we're not really changing the ratios here.
But as it gets more intense, you can slow it down a little bit. But if you keep doing this for the next 20 minutes, you'll find suddenly your entire arms start to tingle, but you cannot open your eyes and you cannot open your mouth. and
Okay.
suddenly it reaches the brain and it silences your entire mind space and it clears your head because it kind of just it's like a whole it's like a wash or like a shower you have in the mind, and automatically you're able to not think of anything but just complete silence. It's actually a very beautiful practice,
Mhm.
but it's a very intense practice.
I can imagine
Yeah,
because a lot of people, when I was growing up, I've been told many times that you need to breathe in a lot of oxygen, you need to take deep breaths in,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then keep those breaths inside. But what science tells us is actually now the opposite. Well, it appears to be that you can take in oxygen while taking a deep breath in, but that is only 21% of the oxygen that you can take in from thin air.
Okay.
What science now tells us is that if you have your exhales, if you time your exhales right, where your exhales have to be longer than your inhales,
Mm.
and especially if you breathe from your nose, which is called nasal breathing,
Mm.
you create a back pressure of carbon dioxide in your body. And carbon dioxide has been vilified as a bad guy in breathing for
Okay.
many years.
Okay.
But turns out that when you have a bit higher amount of carbon dioxide in your bloodstream, that is a signal to dissociate oxygen from hemoglobin. So hemoglobin in our red blood cells carries oxygen to our body.
Correct.
And as soon as you have a little bit of more carbon dioxide, they dump all that oxygen into the blood cells so it can even move faster to your brain. So let's say you were doing this kind of breathing, but if you do a breathing where you're inhaling, let's say for 3 seconds, and then you exhale for like 6 seconds or 8 seconds, and then you hold that breath, you will cause a discomfort and it will get you to the similar state that you mentioned. Your hands will start becoming numb because now you are experiencing more carbon dioxide, which you haven't been trained for. And
Mm.
your mind will also shut off all the chatter because A, you have more oxygen delivery, and B, carbon dioxide availability in the brain also triggers something called as DMT.
Yeah, and
So,
chemical. Yeah,
we've seen things like this in holotropic breathwork and a
correct.
lot of these other breathwork protocols. Some of the Wim Hof guys, they teach things like this before you get into an ice bath.
Yeah.
And that also will create an experience which, well, everyone has a different way to define it.
I've had a very intense
Yeah,
experience.
so everyone
Yeah.
has a different kind of experience, but it also happens in a lot of these plant medicine
Right,
practices.
right.
If you are in Peru or whatever and you want to do ayahuasca or something, San Pedro or something like that, then there is a very specific breathwork protocol that gives you that, like, increases more of that DMT. And
Correct.
yeah, I found this to be very interesting because when you look in nature, every mammal that breathes a lot or breathes fast, 9 times out of 10, their lifespan is less. But when you take mammals like the naked mole rat, which lives underground and which has less availability of oxygen and more of carbon dioxide, lives up to 15 times longer than all of its cousins. The bowhead whale can live up to 250 years. The turtle, I forget his name, they can live up to 200 years just because they're breathing lesser than all of their cousins.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so breathing more is good, but the quality
Quality
of
of the
your
breathing
breathing
has to.
matters because let's say if you and
Sure.
me, we're breathing, a healthy person
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
would be breathing about 15 breaths per minute, 16 breaths per minute. But as soon as you have some kind of a disease or you have some kind of a problem running through your body, your breath rate increases from 15 all the way to 25 or 30. So you are taking in more breath. People who have cancer, they're taking 28 breaths per minute.
Oh wow.
That is how big it is. And then you look at the ancient yogis, you look at spiritual masters, you see Tai Chi masters,
Yeah.
you see monks living in the Shaolin temple. And the one thing that they will tell you is that your breath is
Connected to
connected
life.
to life.
It's not about the number. It's not about the time. It's about the number of breaths you take.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they've all been very profound in breathing less. And when you look at a lot of researchers who are now researching breathwork, and you get to know that the optimal ratio for breathing is about 5.5 breaths. If you want to increase your longevity, your health span, you want to increase mitochondrial biodensity, you need to increase all these other organelles like peroxisomes and stuff. You have to breathe 5.5 times. So you inhale and that inhale should be 5.5. Then you hold, and it's very difficult. I've still not been able to do it. And you hold for about 5 seconds, and then you exhale for 5.5 seconds. That in all will give you 5.5 breaths per minute, and that's probably
Yeah, but
one
I
of
think when
the
you have like all your like your negative emotions, it increases your breath, right?
yes.
Because then you tend to breathe faster and you get more anxious and you have more anxiety, and so I think yeah, so lowering your breath. But this practice of rebirthing, I mean, which is why I don't recommend it like on an everyday basis, but it
With,
can.
with rebirthing, is there a way to breathe through a music instrument? Because I've come across rebirthing practices with some ancient tribes where they somehow I forget the name of this music instrument, but it's a way that they have to continuously play the instrument, and they have to kind of like inhale from their nose, exhale from their mouth, and at the same time inhale from their nose again. So it constantly is
I'm sure there are. Like I haven't come across
yeah.
them because my knowledge is a bit, I mean, like I'm not a rebirthing breath practitioner. I've just practiced it myself, and I've attended a couple of courses with masters, and I've had some profound experiences. But I found that when I've had these experiences, they've always been like altering.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you
if
can
I want
access altered states very easily
exactly,
with this.
exactly, and once in a while, it's when you're caught up in your everyday life routine and you just kind of want to have that experience. It's always been profound for me, I found.
Mhm.
But I don't do it often. I'll do it like once a week. But otherwise, I'd focus on more of calm breathing and slow breathing and try to expand my breath and things like that.
Mhm.
But
Interesting.
yeah,
Also, we were speaking about the energy fields,
correct.
and you said everything starts with a thought, and that thought becomes an emotion.
The
And
emotion influences your energy levels, and
uh,
your energy or your chakras
yeah.
are located directly above the endocrine glands of the body.
Mhm.
And basically, what happens, your chakras correlate to the way you think and feel. So, the moment you think in an imbalanced thought processes, your emotions, like for example, if you have wake up in the morning and have a thought that I'm going to lose my job,
Mhm.
and that thought generates fear, right?
Mhm.
That fear automatically creates an imbalance in your chakras or your flow of energy. Okay. And with energy, we understand, in Chinese, like in medicine, we have 72,000 meridians or channels,
Yeah.
of energy which flow all throughout, like the body. So, what happens with your negative thoughts and emotions, these energies kind of get blocked or imbalanced. And eventually, if we don't resolve them, it affects the endocrine glands of the body because each gland is located directly above the chakras.
Okay.
And so, what does like and what do the and what do the endocrine glands of the body do? They are responsible for producing hormones
Yeah.
for the regulatory functioning of the body. So, what ends up happening is that if we constantly hold on to that fear and anxiety, it automatically, what will it start to do? It'll trigger a cough or a headache or a cold or something that will then lead to a breakdown in the body. So that's how we understand
And
very
worst case
quickly.
scenario, affect your fertility,
Exactly.
affect your
I mean, like,
vision,
yeah,
blood
of
sugar
course.
levels.
Which is why we say you got to resolve emotions. You have to resolve your issues at the level of your thoughts and emotions, because once they manifest into reaching the body, they become more gross and dense.
Yeah.
And then it obviously becomes harder to
Mm.
then resolve issues once they've reached that energy in the body. So that's basically how we understand the mind body connection, and that's how we understand all of the psychosomatic
Mhm.
illnesses, right? That what is psycho, it starts in the mind, and then if left unresolved, it influences the body.
Yeah.
And obviously a lot of like researchers, doctors today, they all will like endorse the mind body connection. So sometimes if you are experiencing any illness and you go to the hospital, they'll say, oh, it's because of stress. You might run all the tests and the tests will be absolutely clear,
Yeah.
but it's stress that's creating this imbalance in the body.
Yeah.
So that's basically focusing a lot about how your thoughts are energy as well, your emotions are energy as well, and then you have the auras and the chakras. It's the energy which you project and you emanate, and
So
then
how
you
do
have
you
the
balance
energy of the
this
body.
chakras? Because a lot of people listening to this have heard about chakras. If you've probably went to a yoga class, you know about auras and chakras.
Yeah.
But the question is how you have, because it's very difficult for people to kind of consciously change their way of looking at things, because your environment determines so much of your thought process, like we mentioned earlier. But let's say a person is stressed, and they're having a hard day at work, and they probably don't have a good relationship, probably going to get a divorce or things like this, And in these situations, it's very hard to like think straight.
Mhm.
But what is the way to then balance these chakras out? What is the way to move energy from the lower end to the upper end? How to move energy through all these marma points, or this, like you said, the meridian points?
Right. So I think it's not a one-time solution, right?
Okay.
That's why we focus on a daily practice. Like for example, if you want to have a great body, you don't go to the gym once and expect you're going to get a
Yeah.
six pack. That's not going to happen, right? It's a process with time. So in a similar way with spirituality and the practices that we introduce, they need to be done on an everyday basis, just like you take a shower and you cleanse your outer body, right? What are you doing to cleanse your inner body on a daily basis?
So tell us
Because the
something. What
most
can we
of
do?
the debris that collects is because if you don't take a shower every day, what's going to end up happening? You're going to end
Yeah.
up smelling. But that's exactly what's happening on the inside. So that reaction or that response to what's happening at work is simply a response based on the debris that's been collected over periods of time. Because we need to have a release. If we don't release it proactively, it will be released unproductively, which means we will react to people, we will release it out of anger, we'll release it out of stress, we will resort to smoking or unhealthy food because the body needs to release itself.
Mhm.
So if you don't release it in a proactive way, so like I said earlier, for example, journaling your thoughts is an excellent practice because you're cleaning out the debris from your thought processes, and people find it hard to meditate. But people can easily write because
Mhm.
writing is a subconscious activity and automatically clears the mind.
Yeah.
Number two, breath work. Okay.
Okay.
Number three, a meditation practice, which is why I say a few minutes because I don't like overwhelming people.
Yeah.
Of
Most of
course,
the people are not going to sit for 20
exactly,
minutes.
exactly. So when you put that pressure on people, automatically it gets
Yeah.
shut down. That I'm not going to do, it. And
Yeah.
we're seeing that with all our clients. So let's not aim for like Mount Everest on day one. Let's
Yeah.
just climb slowly and reach that stage. As and when we build. So I would say a daily spiritual ritual is really important. And then again, spending time with nature. Like you always notice when you spend time on the beach or in the sunlight, it's just so easy and so effective that people don't do it enough.
Mhm.
And I think that can be an excellent practice, maybe once or twice a week. And just these are small things that can actually help. And but if you kind of have a ritual on a daily basis, even
Yeah.
for 10 or 20 minutes, automatically, just as you go to the gym and you come out and you feel so amazing,
Mhm.
eventually you'll end up feeling so amazing every day internally as well,
Mhm.
right? And it's about reading the right kind of books, also the kind of company that you keep,
Yeah.
right? Because or the kind of work that you do. And I think all of this will happen the more you start to care for yourself, the more you start to reflect. The more you start to reflect, the more you start to listen to your thoughts. The more you start to listen to your thoughts, automatically it's an effect where you start to question whether something feels good for you or not good for you.
Mhm.
And then automatically you might just one day wake up and decide, I don't want to be in this job anymore. I'm ready for the next step in my life.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're manifesting new people in your life. You're having new experiences. You're going on new travel journeys. And all of that is your life, really.
Mhm.
And I feel it's like spirituality today is not about extremes. People think I have to be a vegan or I have to, I have to
Go to the
escape.
temple most of the times.
It's not that. It's just
Yeah.
about higher wisdom. And you don't have to give up your material aspirations.
Mhm.
You just need to find a way to balance them with really understanding the intention that's driving those aspirations. It's all about intention, right? If that intention is coming from a space of love or is it coming from a space of fear, right? And you know that based on how you react and how you respond in that moment, right? So you got to reflect back in yourself and check in. That's why self check in is part of self care, which is part of self love. So it's kind of like it's very easy practices that people
Yeah.
that you can do every day. You don't have to have, like a degree in clinical hypnotherapy, or you don't have to have so much information and knowledge like you do have on meditation and wellness.
Yeah.
It's just about really applying simple techniques that can work for you.
I like your point about going and experiencing nature or being in nature. Now, in a metropolitan city like Dubai, we don't have so much of nature around. Like we have parks and stuff. But the idea of going outside and reconnecting, my favorite way, and for my listeners, they already know, is going to the beach and walking barefoot. Also, because what it allows you to do
Right.
is, it allows you to ground. Your body has a
Scientific.
bioenergetical field,
Correct.
and the Earth's crust has something called as negative electrons.
Correct.
And every time you walk
It's like
your
earthing.
feet, yes, you walk your feet, or you. Pro tip is if you can get into a body of water which already has a current, which already has an energy field, your body's energy field increases. Then combined with the salt, magnesium, that is also
Yeah.
conducive of electricity. So if you can go for a swim on the beach, that's best. If you can walk with your feet
Correct.
on the beach, it will also impact your bioenergy fields
Correct.
and give you all those negative electrons. Now, one of the other reasons why this is important is because when we're very disconnected from the nature, or when we are in times of stress, where, like you mentioned, our endocrine glands are secreting all these glucocorticoid hormones, cortisol, things like that, we our cells electrochemical gradient changes. So we are designed to run between, every cell in our body is designed to run between minus 20 and minus 25 milliwatts. And you will see, if you have a voltmeter and you see people who are sick or are stressed or have some kind of a disease, their body moves from minus 25 all the way to like 10, 1. So it goes more on the positive side.
Oh wow.
Yeah, the inside of the cell is always negative and the outside of the cell is always positive. The problem starts happening when the inside of the cell becomes positive. And when you're doing all of these healing practices, and because there have been so many people in the world who have done healing practices and equipped themselves with a voltmeter to check their body temperature or their cells electromagnetic gradient falls under minus 50 milliwatts. That's the voltage for healing.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so if you can give your cells minus 50 milliwatts, that's going to accelerate your healing process. This is
Right.
what people have found.
100%.
And one of the ways to do that is by walking bare feet
On the
on
gas.
on the grass or
And
on
that's
the
why we
beach.
love going on holiday, right? So whenever I
Yes.
go on holiday, I eat whatever I want to. Okay. I don't think about what I eat. In fact, when I'm here in Dubai, I diet. I have a clean eating strategy. I do a lot of practices. But the moment I'm on holiday, I don't think about anything, but I'm just on the beach every day. I'm in the water and I'm enjoying myself. I come back and people always tell me, "Oh my God, you look so amazing." And
Yeah.
when I'm actually doing the practices on a daily basis, people don't tell me that. They're like, "Oh, you look tired," you know?
It's because also location has a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And what happens is every time you change your location from one place to the other, that specific location
Correct.
smell, it brings in a certain form of energy.
Energy, true.
And
I
then
completely agree with this, which is why I endorse take as many holidays as possible.
take as many holidays as possible, or else if you want to change your mood to be a certain way, or you want to reinforce a specific habit, change that location. Because if you're, let's say you were talking about journaling,
Yeah.
now if an environment like your office prevents you from doing it because you have pre-existing conceptions.
You can't heal from the same place that made you
Exactly.
sick.
So go to a coffee shop,
Yeah.
walk into a coffee shop, maybe it's your way at work or like coming back from work, get a tea or a decaf coffee and make sure you take your journal there. Do your journaling practices there, because this
Exactly.
place will be completely different and will not come with the preconception of stress or stress elevating hormones. The next thing, like you said, vacation, because you actually change your lenses
Yeah.
and you allow yourself more love and compassion and
Yeah.
like take a break. Because think about it, right? You're, let's say you were dieting and you're stressing out and you have all this work and assignments to do, and then you catch on a flight and then you get to this new place and now everything changes. You allow yourself more
Yeah.
space, you're more friendlier with people.
Yeah.
But what has really changed? Nothing. You are the same person. And God forbid, I hope this never happens to everyone, but if you get a call in your vacation, when you're in the vacation lens, and someone tells you there has been a serious problem at your office or something urgent needs to be sorted, automatically your lenses change.
Yeah.
And then you become the same
Same
old
person.
serious person.
Yeah.
And a way to biohack this is, if in your regular life you can, I mean, it comes with a lot, like intention. You said you've got to change your energy field and you have to tell yourself, okay, you know what? I'm done with this job. Now I'm going to put on my vacation lenses. And you start seeing things from the vacation lens,
Yeah.
imagining you as a
You can
person.
channelize that
Yes.
energy into your daily life, so you don't have
Exactly.
to run away from a life or like think you have to escape to feel that
And
same
especially
energy.
because a lot of people don't have the liberty or the
travel.
luxury to travel. But again, traveling would be, like Sonia mentioned earlier, traveling would be something that you might look outside of you, but you can already create these emotions, like, whether it's by visualization, whether it's by doing things that you would do then. But you can kind of like bring in this future energy into
Right.
yourself right now, and that would at least, if not eliminate all of your problems, it'll give you a stable mindset for
Correct.
those certain hours that you, because we don't always want to have the vacation lenses, right?
Yeah.
You've got, you you have different parts of your brain, which one is creative, one is a risk taker, one
Yeah.
is an adventure person. So
Yeah.
you have to balance all of that out. You don't want to be on a holiday mode all the time. When
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
go time for work, you have to
Yeah.
put on that
Exactly.
lens.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's very interesting. And also,
That's great. I'm learning so much from you.
it's an interesting chat. Actually, we've been talking. I haven't even seen the time. I have no clue what time is going on right now. But
You
um,
definitely make a great teacher and a practitioner. Maybe you should teach at Illuminations.
well, let's talk about that to sometime. But also your emotions, right? Your heart, your emotions, the way you think. Very important thing that you brought up. Also creates a field of energy.
100%.
Harvard did a study in 2006
Yes.
where they figured out that the heart's electromagnetic
Energy.
field is, you can feel it, like another person can feel your heart's
Or
electromagnetic
it's the
field.
Heart Math Institute. Was it the Heart Math
It
Institute?
was Harvard and the
Heart
HeartMath.
Math Institute.
So
Yeah.
HeartMath have been doing a lot of experiments after they've got this information.
Correct.
So they've linked everyone up, and they're
Yeah.
testing for heart rate variabilities. They're doing these global meditation and
Right.
seeing how much of peace increases throughout the world. And
Yeah, there's actually a documentary called The Power of the Heart, which I recommend everybody to watch.
okay,
It's
so the
amazing.
power of the heart,
Yeah,
everyone.
The Power of the Heart. It's amazing, and it's exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
So go on. Yeah, I want to know about it.
So we were talking about the heart's electromagnetic field, and they discovered that the heart's electromagnetic field can reach up to 6.5 feet. I also know that it turns a slight extra information, but like it turns slightly towards the left.
Yeah.
And this is the reason why I want everyone to realize when you walk into a room and let's say there are only two people or like one person and you don't know that person, you don't even have enough information to judge that person, you will feel a strong presence if their energy is very strong,
Yes.
whether it's positive or negative. And this also brings us to the idea that if just coming into a room and being next to a person can influence your or their energy fields, how much energy fields can you affect in your day-to-day lifestyle? Because you're going to be much more closer to people in your work life, in your when you're going out shopping and things like that. So it's very important for people to realize that you have the power to kind of affect a person's reality.
100%.
Even other things like which can support this are mirror neurons, which are part of our brain, which kind of they're designed to replicate a certain emotion or a certain feeling that a person is feeling. So ask yourself this question again: if someone can look at you and their brain goes through the same emotional experience as yours, today when you go outside, how many people are you going to smile to? Because every time you smile at someone, their inner brain smiles, and this just keeps on continuing. Every time you are feeling a positive emotion, just because someone is not having that positive emotion doesn't mean that you have to change yourself, because you have the power to affect and influence other people.
Exactly.
So if there's one thing that you have to take away from this podcast, would be that when you're outside in any situation, even if the situation is stressful, be that catalyst or be that element of change where people can ride onto your energy. And in like brain science and neuroscience, we do this all the time. Like you attach electrodes to your health, you can go to alpha or theta or stuff like that. But
Right.
when you want to increase your brainwave state to something as fast as gamma brainwave frequency, which is about 100 hertz, you have to make other brainwaves so you don't get it naturally. Your brainwaves have to ride on other brainwaves, and this is how you can get to the peak of your experience.
Correct.
In anything that you're doing, whether you're writing, whether you're meditating. If you can increase that brain voltage, and that can only happen by riding on some other brainwave frequencies.
Correct.
So just like that in life, the cyclical nature in life, you
Amazing.
jump onto some other person's, you affect someone's emotion, you jump onto that, then someone jumps onto the other one, and then you keep on passing. Something like what you have done.
Exactly.
You've learned from a source, you brought them here, then you learned again, and now the cycle keeps on continuing.
Of course. I mean, my teacher says, like the way to increase your happiness dose, which is dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins.
Yeah.
I think he talks about, when you want to increase your dopamine, you do something good for the environment. When you want to increase your oxytocin, you do something good in your relationships. When you want to do
just hug a
something,
tree.
exactly. So each of these like hormones have an action that you can do on a daily basis to increase your dose naturally, just by, doing for other people. It's like, we feel so great when we give to another person, and then they
Mm.
feel so much happier. It's like, so I was, I like, in fact, I shared a Tony Robbins quote. It's like, he says happiness is not by what you get, it's by how much you give and how much you're able to contribute. And I think that relates to what you're talking about. And at the end of
Yeah.
the day, I think all of us have something to contribute. We all have a healer within us.
Yeah.
And sometimes that healer is a musician, sometimes that healer is an artist, sometimes that healer is a teacher,
Yeah.
sometimes that healer is a writer. So we all have a healing archetype, and I think it's like we all have that blueprint in our spiritual DNA, that we call it.
Mhm.
We have the power to be able to influence another person and contribute to a more happier, healthier, and purposeful way of life for everybody. And I think if we can tap into that by first feeling it for ourselves, so
Yeah.
that happiness starts with you, because you can't give to someone what you don't have for yourself,
Yeah.
right? And I think it all boils down to you. It all's about, once you start to change yourself, automatically you'll start changing the world.
Yeah. I like something that you mentioned there, that you have to kind of like be in that state of giving, because when you look at brain maps and neural networks in the brain, there is so much evidence right now that the part of the brain which is linked to generosity is also the part of the brain that is linked to happiness. So every time
100%.
you are generous, and this would be counteracting to what if to something that anyone would think, right?
Yeah.
How could you be more happy by giving away things?
Yeah.
You can only be happy by getting things in your life.
Yeah.
But reality is, and you can talk to spiritual masters, or millionaires, or just experience this from an anecdotal point in your own life. Every time you give something to someone when that person really needs it, and this doesn't have to be money. This could be like an advice, a guidance, whether you help someone with their homework, you help someone get ready for something, that automatically increases your happiness in your life. And it's very important, because most of the times we're walking through life with the lens of like receiving things, because I'll if I receive this money, I'm
Which
gonna
always
be
feels great as
happy.
well.
It
Let's
does.
not lie.
But that happiness set point,
It's a pleasure.
yes, it
It's not a
gets
happiness.
reversed.
I think people, have to differentiate what's pleasurable and what's happiness, because me eating a chocolate cake, it gives me a lot of happiness, but it doesn't give me happiness. It gives me pleasure.
Pleasure, yeah.
So I think people have, like, they have a misconception between what is pleasure and what is happiness, because all the things that are not good for us, we feel so happy when we do them, right? Because you can say, from retail therapy to having that chocolate cake to watching all that Netflix. It's
That's
just pleasure.
pleasure,
It's
yeah.
pleasure, right? But we say, oh, that's happiness, because a lot of people,
But also,
it's
I
a blurred
feel,
line, right?
yeah,
So-
I also feel that chasing happiness could be good for you, but chasing pleasure at the same time isn't. Because every time you want to chase pleasure, like like that chocolate, you might gain weight, and then you might fall sick.
But it's an 80-20
And
rule, right? We
yeah.
got to put a bit of that pleasure in, because life is all
Yeah,
about.
you have to. Although it's not something that you should solely focus on. Like the 80-20 rule is perfect, but a lot of people get caught up, and then we start seeing brain disorders and things like this, when you like smoking, and then you start smoking so much, and then you like gambling, and then you lose all your money, and then you're these
I think
things.
anything in excess and attachment.
Yes.
The moment you become attached to something. So if you eat the ice cream and enjoy the pleasure of the ice cream for what it is, then it's great. But what happens is that the moment you eat that ice cream, it goes
all
into the
that
subconscious
dopamine, all
mind.
that dopamine comes up
Exactly.
again.
And then the subconscious mind is like, wow, this feels great. And now I want more of this. And
Yeah.
because the subconscious mind is 6,000 times more powerful than the conscious mind, the next day you're gravitating towards that same feeling. So when you feel down, again, that's your easy shortcut to, again, try and feel good. But the more you do it, the more it becomes unhealthier for yourself.
Yeah.
So I think pleasure is great as long as attaching yourself to that pleasure. And I think awareness is the key, right? Because the moment you start to become awareness of who you are and what you're trying to actually do, you're not living life like unconsciously. Because they say if you live your life unconsciously, you think it's conscious, and then you call that, okay, this is just how
Yeah,
my
you're
life
just
is.
in
This
a-
is just fate, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you become more conscious, you can do better when you know better. And
Yeah.
I'll just
It
leave
also
it at that.
it also doesn't help that 2/3 of our tongue are dedicated to sensing something sweet.
I love your technical angle on everything. It's quite cute.
Yeah, I mean, that's a thing that I find with a lot of people that I talk to, and everyone's like, I can't give up sugar. And I'm like, I know, because you're not designed to give up sugar. 2/3 of your tongue are meant to appreciate sugar, and when I meant appreciate, that means get addicted to sugar.
Yeah.
Because long back, before we didn't have this agricultural revolution and things like that, one of the hardest things to find in nature were plain sugar. When I mean sugar, glucose molecules, carbohydrates. And this is one of the ways our brain is rewired itself. Like you mentioned, one of these neurochemistry, right? Dopamine, the act of achieving something, the act of getting something, the act of smoking a cigarette, the act of getting into any pleasurable activity increases more dopamine. That, I don't mean that you should all go do that, but if you have a checklist of things and every time you achieve something on the checklist, you also increase dopamine. And this dopamine is the reason why we do all these risk-taking activities. Like imagine in
The
your
adrenaline rush that we
the
get.
adrenaline, the dopamine, the norepinephrine, and what happens is every time you take this risk to go out of your way and getting something done, you tap into something called as a white matter, which is a part of a structure in your brain, which is almost, it's called the neural highway because it's got 160,000 kilometers worth of neural networks, which are all designed to make you feel like great at something. So let's say you won a race and then you did a risk taking activity. So I always tell people, like, one of the ways to accelerate your brain's performance is actually going out and taking safe risks. And this doesn't have to be those physical risks. It could be emotional risks. It could be intellectual risk.
Correct.
And the more you do it, the more life satisfaction you get. And like things like checking things out of the checklist, things like that.
Breaking out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, like, and you mentioned some other things like oxytocin. Go give someone a hug. You know, if you're a biohacker, then you have an intranasal oxytocin spray, and then you can do that. You know, you can get it past the blood-brain barrier and go straight to the brain nerves. Oxytocin. Then you had serotonin. You said
Correct.
serotonin. Something so simple like have something sweet. It will increase serotonin, or just have some carbohydrates. It'll do the same. Or just sleep well.
Yeah.
You know, if you're checking out being meditation, increase serotonin as well. Anything that makes you a bit happy, not pleasurable, but happy, can increase that. And now, Sonia, we could go on and on and on, and we could make like a 10 episode podcast if we keep talking, but I want to respect your time, and I know that you're very busy. Now, let's end this podcast here. My question to you is, or one of my last questions is, if you had a time machine,
Oh God.
And
One of those questions.
if you could go back into your younger self, right? What would be that one piece of advice that you would give yourself?
What would be that one?
Knowing all that you know right now, so it doesn't have to be about spirituality. It could be about relationships. It could be about thinking about making doing this online thing earlier. It could be about anything. But what would be that one piece of advice that you might give yourself?
I think that you are love. I just think it comes down to completely loving yourself for who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that obviously, if I can go on like as a lecture, but I would say just you're good enough as you are.
Okay.
Because from my personal life experiences, and everyone has had their own thing. Sometimes we feel that we need to be someone,
Mm-hmm.
or we need to achieve something, or
Constant
we need to
comparison.
acquire something. To be, to at the end of the day, love ourselves more.
Yeah.
To prove our worth and our value. And I think that we live in a society that tells us our value is determined by how other people accept us. But I think the lessons and the learning that I would give myself is the value is that you derive from your own self, not by anything that you achieve or acquire, just by being who you are, authentic
Okay.
to who you are, and that's as simple and profound, because I think one of the greatest problems that people face in their life is not loving themselves enough. Not, and then of course it can come to lack of self-belief, lack of self-esteem. It extends to many different things, right?
Yeah, but it all starts with love.
It all completely starts with completely loving yourself
Uh-huh.
unconditionally for who you are. Yes, nobody's perfect, or people talk
They're not
about
meant
their
to be
body
perfect,
image.
yeah.
Exactly, but it's about just unconditionally loving, accepting yourself who you are, because you might not get it from your
Yeah.
like your mother. You might not get it in the way you want it from your father. You might not get it in your relationships. You might not get it in your work, because you're looking for something that's not outside.
Yeah.
It's completely within yourself, and you're so completely full of that. It's just that I would tell myself.
Mhm.
So everything in my life would have been a lot different if I had this knowledge and awareness when I was like 5 years old.
Wow, amazing. Now
It's
it's very
simple.
difficult to have that awareness when you're
It's
5 years
it's
old.
simple because like it's not as oh my god as profound, but
Yeah.
it's so profound yet at the same
Yeah.
time.
Now, anyone who's listening to this, please take that advice and get to know that you're special, love yourself, and also every time you express love, you go towards a higher emotion in that electromagnetic signal that we spoke about.
Yeah.
Love, kindness, doing something, generosity. These are all positive ends of the spectrum, and the more positive your emotions are, I'm sure your chakras get balanced, your energy improves, your heart just radiates, it gets into a coherent manner, and in your brain the act of doing something with full of love wires your neurons to do the same again. So we say that neurons that fire together. So make those neurons wire together and fire in absolute love. This is CJ signing out from this special episode of the Ship with CJ podcast with Sonia. Guys, I hope you have a wonderful day, a
Thank you so
week,
much.
a lifetime ahead of you. And thank you, Sonia.
Thank you. Take
Thanks.
care.